David, what's up, man? How you doing?
I'm good, James. How are you doing? You're a little snug in there, a little dark. What's happening over there, huh?
Yeah, I'm trying to create a vibe here. I'm trying to get the sound blocked in, trying to be all professional and everything.
Looks like a bat cave, you know? I
Oh,
like
I'll take that. I'll take that vibes. Hey, maybe we'll get the Batman conversation going for you, but that's another conversation for another day. You never know, right? You
another
never
day. Another
know. But we're talking about Most Dangerous Game New York host on the Roku Channel coming up on Friday, March the 10th. When you first started, getting into the series, what was your first impression of the series as a whole?
well, I thought I mean, Christoph Waltz, that was the first thing. I was like, I mean, I can't believe that he's coming back for another season. I was like, and the fact that I was able to, kind of come in and put my own spin on it. I mean, and working with Nick Santora, I mean, it's just kind of I mean, it's a great team. And I was just excited. I was excited the first day. I was excited when I first met Christoph. I was very nervous. Shook his hand like a man, a little shaky,
Of course.
but yeah, it was quite a ride.
What kind of a vibe does a guy like Christoph bring to that? I mean, I know you guys didn't have a ton of scenes like together, but what kind of a vibe does he bring as like your opposite in a show like this?
Massively respectful, sort of like a sort of like a light in the sea, where you're just kind of looking at them, and you'd be like, while he's on screen, I don't have to do anything because this man carries every scene. And I'm like, I'm fine with that, And so there was a lot of sort of just kind of deferring to Christoph. I'm like, what do you think? Or just letting him do something. I'm just gonna listen. And and selfishly, I'm gonna learn also. I'm gonna see what I can learn from this maestro.
Smart move, my friend. Smart move indeed. So you're playing Victor Suero in the series, the new runner for this upcoming season. So as you got to know Victor a little bit better, what was your favorite thing about him?
I loved his outlook in life. I really, that was something that I feel was very relatable to even to my own family, which is the ability to not be influenced by money, but more so by family, by trying to make sure that the family is the most important aspect and it's the purpose of what drives him to do everything. And so I've seen, some of the action films that I've seen that are driven by love rather than revenge, or by one's own need to just get rich. I've connected to the ones that have just deeper purpose, like when I seen like Taken, with Liam Neeson, or like
Mm-hmm.
goes and saves his daughter, or like um, I don't know, even like John Wick, where like the dog had a reference to the wife, and
Yep.
I feel like once you get involved in those areas, I think you have a chance to having a solid protagonist that you can root for.
And that describes Victor very well because I feel like I was rooting for him this entire time for more reasons than one, of course. But
Oh, great.
you mentioned family, and that is a really big part of it. That's the reason he enters the game in the first place. How much can you tell us about the bond between Victor and his sister?
Well, there is, there was a big accident that they had gone through, 10, 10, 15 years prior, where the parents were died in a fire. And so, they're sort of, even though they're brother and sister, it's more of a father-daughter relationship. He really does see her as his responsibility, and someone that who he needs to sort of uplift, to make sure that the spirits of his parents carry through him in order to service the sister. Um, and so it had to be very genuine. I feel like I had to bring a lot of my own experiences as an older brother in my life, to be able to just make it sincere, and to not feel, sort of, generic, or sort of by the numbers. I like, even like the small little dance and the scene with the music. That was something that I was like, I think there needs to be something that speaks more than just saying how much we love each other, but how can we show that, you know? And thankfully they let me do it. They let me do that dance, and I was like, great.
That was a quick scene, but a very good scene, and you're no stranger to dancing, that's for sure. So that's that.
That's
I'm sure that had to be a little bit easy. That's right. Yeah, it's cutting the rug just a little bit. Speaking of things you're very familiar with, obviously your combat skills are on full display. We've seen that as Diego Hargreaves in the Umbrella Academy, some of the other stuff as well. So, how much of that experience were you kind of able to bring into this role for this? Because this is a very unique kind of action, I feel like, in this role.
Yeah, there was there, you know, I could carry a lot of the experience I had, and there also was a balance of making sure that he wasn't too good at the things. That a lot of the fights were more practical rather than flashy, you
Mhm.
know, because he obviously, if he was too good at winning these fights, then you could sort of ask yourself, well, why isn't he a world heavyweight champion
Right.
right now? Why isn't he making millions of dollars holding, titles and stuff? It's like, no, this is more of an everyday man who just happens to be very skilled at martial arts. So there was a lot to think about. It like, can't be too buff and can't be too cut, but also can't be too lazy. So how do we find the practical physicality of this character?
Nick talked about this when I was speaking to him a few minutes ago, and I wanted to ask you about it too because we he kind of let the cat out of the bag that Victor has a bit of an impairment, and that's one of the reasons that again he wasn't able to succeed as a boxer. Did you kind of go into that like in the back of your mind as you're doing these scenes? You're like, okay, I'm going to do this, this, and this, but I've got to remember that this guy has this particular impairment. Did you have to factor that in? I mean, how hard was that?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't that it was hard. It was just I just had to remind myself that, like, when we were doing scenes, it was like, hey, this is gonna happen. I'm like, I can't see,
Yeah.
if you expect me to react to this moment, we can't be sitting in this position, so there was elements of like being trying to like honor that one thing, which was his impairment. And I feel like yeah, I mean, if he did have two good eyes, would he be a better fighter? Obviously he would. Um, but I do like to hope that the his own skill was his heart.
Mhm.
That was the bigger skill of his, and being able to maneuver around these assassins with ingenuity rather than with just two eyeballs, or one eyeball.
He definitely does that for sure too. Now let's talk about those assassins for a minute because the hunters the Victor faces off against are some very unique fighters for sure, and there's weapons. As a matter of fact, some of them are really quite odd. So, was there a particular showdown that you enjoyed filming the most, or was there a hunter that you really enjoyed working with in this upcoming season that you can talk about?
I mean, I think all of them were phenomenal, and like they were, lovely, and they had, a lot to bring to the character, the actors in general. I think the one of the hardest and most rewarding ones was the tank, the
Mhm.
tank where I go in there with Nixon, and we have this fight, and it was just the ball because we didn't use any stunts, so it was just him and I, Mr. Webster, and he was phenomenal. I really enjoyed working with him. And but it was, yeah, that to me was sort of the one that was because it was wet and you were just sloppy and it was cold and trying to stay warm and just trying to make sure he doesn't poke you with that thing.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah,
That did not look like fun.
no, I mean, but it was worth it. It was worth it.
No doubt about it, man. So one of the things that I really love about Victor, and you kind of touched on this too, is we see him improvise a lot, as far as like finding things to help him or creating unique situations to sort of get out of a jam. So do you kind of feel like that kind of made it more true to life? Like somebody's watching this and saying, you better grab that thing because you got nothing here. So you're just grabbing what you can. Did it kind of feel real in the moment to you?
Yeah, I mean, there was moments where, especially like, for example, him getting trapped in the closet and trying to figure out how to open those things up, and
Hmm.
it sort of, it, to me at least, it grounded the scenario because it wasn't just by the numbers. It wasn't like, oh, it's, fight, 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 run, fight, fight. It was very much like, oh, he got stuck here. Oh, he tripped out. He needs a bottle. Get that bottle
Yeah.
of and that bottle in itself causes the noise in the stadium, and so Nick was really great at like adding these little pieces in each scene that would sort of link to the next one, like the syringe, the syringe that the lady wants to stab me with, and then I end up stabbing her back. I mean, actually, there was a whole thing that got cut out, which I don't know if I'm allowed to speak about. which I'm allowed to talk about, but I'll leave it out because I'm not even sure if because they didn't make the cut, so it doesn't matter.
Maybe another time. Maybe another time we'll jump into that.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
another time.
so David, I know that New York City can sometimes be its own character in so many things over the years. Do you kind of feel like having Victor trying to survive this particular game in New York, as opposed to some like remote location or something like that, really kind of took things up another level?
Yeah, I mean, I would hope so. New York has its own character. It has its own history, and I feel like I love New York. Like to me, New York is one of those places that, like, as growing up in California, I'm like, man, I wish I could just live in New York once. And you go there for the experience of feeling like you're being chased by a train. That's sort of like I think when I talk to people about New York, it sort of feels you just have to move. There's a
Mhm.
hustle and there's a drive in that city. So it just fit perfectly to put a runner in there and trying to survive and win $24 million.
And you got to deal with everything around you too. It's not just it's the people. It's every well. I don't care. So I won't spoil anything, but there's plenty going on around you.
Yes, yes, yes. I don't want to spoil it either.
So speaking of no spoilers, I just got to get your reaction. How surprised were you by that final episode, and how surprised do you think fans are going to be by that ending?
Well, I mean, I don't know. It's funny. Like everyone is going to interpret it in their own way, and I feel like the most important thing is like that they feel like they weren't cheated at the end, and because I feel like sometimes you can really enjoy the journey, and at the end, sometimes creatives they try to be too smart, too witty, too
Mhm.
they try to sort of play a joke on the audience, and which I think is great. Also, I just feel like at times some people really want the reward at the end, and when I first read the script, I was really there was a point where I asked, and we shot an alternate ending where Victor doesn't take the money, you know, and in the end, they went with the one where he sort of just gets handed the money. And I feel like that's sort of in the middle. And also, if you're watching it as a viewer, it's like, yes, take it for everything that you went through.
Mhm.
This is the least that you can have now. And now they're set for life. And that puts a sort of a nail in the coffin. Like, I'm not worried about this person. Now this person's going to be okay.
Wait till you see this wild ride because it definitely is one. Most Dangerous Game New York premieres on the Roku Channel for free on March the 10th. You've got to see it, and you're gonna be rooting this guy on from start to finish. David Castañeda, thank you so much, man, for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, James. I really appreciate it.